All right, let's dive right into this explainer and tackle the dragon of overthinking together. If you've ever felt like your own brain is basically plotting against you, keeping you up at night, or just totally stopping you from taking action, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're framing you as the hero of your own mind, and we're going to give you the actual practical tools you need to stop those endless mental loops for good. So, let's start with a quick symptom check. I actually want you to put your hands up right now. Seriously, go ahead. Now, drop a finger for every one of these scenarios that you personally relate to. Have you ever spent way too much time over editing a simple email before finally hitting send? Or how about mentally preparing for a completely fake argument in the shower that never actually happens? Drop a finger if you regularly take more than 10 minutes just to pick out an outfit, or if you constantly rehearse conversations in your head before having them. What about stressing over past events from literally years ago? Or taking over 10 minutes just to order food at a restaurant? Take a look at your hands. If you dropped most of your fingers, it's a bit of a wake-up call to see just how much your mind controls you. But don't worry, here is our roadmap for today to take that control back. We'll start by asking if you're an overthinker, look at the evolutionary roots of it, and compare normal thinking versus overthinking. Then we'll dive right into 4 quick mental hacks, talk about embracing awareness and the unknown, and finally, wrap up with mastering your mindset. All right, section 1. Are you an overthinker? Let's diagnose this modern epidemic of a busy mind. If you dropped most of your fingers a moment ago, you are absolutely not alone. A massive majority of adults are paralyzed by this exact same indecision and stress. Just look at this. A staggering 73% of people between the ages of 25 and 35 identify as overthinkers, alongside 52% of those aged 45 to 55 who face the exact same battle. It is, quite literally, a widespread epidemic. Moving to section 2, the roots of overthinking. How survival instincts and past traumas essentially hijack our brains. Think about it this way. Millions of years ago, early Homo sapiens were physically pretty weak compared to top predators. To survive, we literally had to develop worst-case scenario thinking just to avoid physical threats, like being eaten by lions. Then, at the dawn of civilization, we used that same analytical thinking to form groups, build tools, and guarantee our safety. It was basically our ultimate superpower. But here's the catch. In the modern day, our environment has changed infinitely faster than our biology. That exact same primitive brain now invents fake dangers. So the really crucial point here is that your brain is acting like a high-alert radar looking for a lion in a modern world where the biggest actual threat is just an unread text message. But beyond just evolution, there are these hidden emotional triggers at play too. Things like childhood trauma, perhaps growing up with severe family debt or a volatile home environment, that forces a child to constantly worry about the future, purely as a defense mechanism. Then there's uncertainty, that feeling of complete helplessness about what happens next. A lack of self-trust also fuels this toxic perfectionism that prevents you from taking any action at all. And let's not forget people-pleasing, which creates a constant, draining fear of upsetting anyone around you. And finally, just a plain old fear of discomfort. Let's be real, sometimes sitting on the couch and just imagining a scenario is vastly easier than actually doing the hard work. These hidden triggers are what keep us trapped in those endless mental loops. Section 3. Thinking versus overthinking. Let's look at our 3-factor diagnostic rubric. So, how do we actually tell the difference? Let's compare the two. When it comes to time spent, spending 2 years researching a massive book is healthy, deep thinking. But spending an entire month planning a 1-minute video? Yeah, that's overthinking. Look at action. Healthy thinking is checking a pool's depth, seeing that it's safe, and jumping right in. Overthinking is standing at the edge of the pool forever, shivering, fearing the splash, worrying about the water temperature, and never actually swimming. And finally, the if test. Deep thinkers use if-then logic, meaning if a problem happens, then I will find a solution. Overthinkers just get stuck on the if, fixating purely on the problem without ever searching for the way out. There is a really beautiful concept inspired by Swami Vivekananda highlighted right here. Don't stop the storm, learn to redirect it. The goal of this explainer isn't to violently suppress your thoughts. That honestly never works and usually just makes the storm way stronger. Rather, the key is to redirect that massive, powerful mental energy completely away from negative rumination and channel it directly into productive analysis. Which brings us to section 4. 4 quick mental hacks. These are your immediate prescriptions to stop that mental spiral. Tool number 1 is the 90-10 rule. This dictates that 90% of your self-worth absolutely must come from your own internal appreciation and validation. Only 10% should ever come from the opinions of others. When you flip this ratio and you start worrying way too much about what the crowd thinks, overthinking takes over completely. You have got to keep that 90% internal. Tool number 2 is what we call the decision habit. This is basically how you vaccinate your brain against indecision. You start by identifying a super low-stakes decision, like ordering food at a restaurant or picking out your clothes for the day. Set a really quick timer to force an immediate, rapid-fire choice. Then you just accept the outcome, knowing full well a bad meal won't ruin your life. Practicing these rapid-fire choices on things that don't actually matter builds the mental muscle you need to scale this newfound confidence to larger, much more important life decisions. Tool number 3 is the thinking timesheet. This brilliantly satisfies your brain's primitive itch to worry by scheduling a specific time later in the day to actually process those thoughts. You create a dedicated physical or digital space to literally park nagging, anxious thoughts. When your brain throws a random worry at you during your workday, you write it down and effectively tell your brain, hey, I hear you, but we will deal with this at 5 p.m. It allows you to let the thought go in the present moment, remain super productive, and address it later when you are actually calm. And tool number 4 is reframing. This is all about twisting your mind's camera lens. Instead of being completely problem-oriented and constantly asking, what if things don't go my way? Shift your focus to be solution-oriented. What if things do go my way? You change your focus from a blurry, anxious fear of failure to a sharp, clear focus on positive outcomes and learning opportunities. Section 5, Embracing Awareness and Uncertainty. These are the long-term lifestyle shifts for a truly peaceful mind. Think of it this way. Just like muddy water clears up when you leave it perfectly still, mental clarity requires awareness of the mind's chaotic traffic flow. The crucial point here is that you cannot manage your mental traffic until you step back and act like a city traffic cop. You need to simply observe the flow of your thoughts through daily practices like journaling or meditation. You literally have to let the mud settle so you can finally see clearly. Imagine you're watching a cricket match, right? If the coin toss at the very beginning just immediately decided the winner, the game would be entirely pointless and incredibly boring to watch. This perfectly captures why we have to stop running away from uncertainty. The fun is in the match. If life were perfectly predictable, there would be zero excitement, zero learning, and zero growth. We have to learn to genuinely love the unknown. Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Mastering Your Mindset. Because ultimately, you create your own reality. There is this incredible story of a soldier who angrily demands that a monk explain the concepts of heaven and hell to him. The monk immediately insults him, which causes the soldier to draw his sword in absolute rage, ready to strike. The monk simply points at him and says, "That is hell." Realizing that his own mind had completely controlled him and almost pushed him to violence, the soldier calms down, sheaths his sword, and bows in profound gratitude. The monk just smiles and says, "And that is heaven." This shows us that by allowing anger and overthinking to dictate your actions, you actively construct your own personal hell. But simple, mindful awareness instantly builds your heaven. So we're going to end on this one, really powerful question. If life was completely certain and every single outcome was guaranteed, would the journey even be worth taking? Embrace the beautiful uncertainty of life. Use the tools we covered today to conquer your mind, redirect the storm, and ask yourself this final question to completely reframe your future. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and always remember, you are the hero of your own mind.